everyone, Digital David here. Today in this video, I'm going to be checking out the MSI MAG. This is their A850GL PCIe 5 white power supply. MSI did send the sample, but any opinion expressed in this video is strictly my own. That being said, if you're interested in this product or you want to find out more about it, the link to it will be in the video description. Here's a look at the retail box and packaging. Everything looks great. They walk you through its key tech specs and features. It's ATX 3.0 compatible, PCIe 5.0 ready, and it's 80+ gold certified. And we have the really cool white color scheme here, which is going to look amazing in that computer behind me. Now let's go ahead, let's open it up and see what's inside. Here are all the contents. First up, we have our power supply screws right here. It's a bag consisting of 4 silver screws. Next, we have all of the cables. So we'll start with the 2 included CPU cables here. Take a look at those. Followed by our single power 600 watt GPU cable. 12 volt high power. I love the yellow tip ends. That's going to allow you to make sure you have it properly seated and plugged in to your GPU. You don't want to see any yellow when you have this installed. Love that feature. Next, we still have 2 PCIe cables. If you want to power your GPU that way, or another accessory. We have 2 of our SATA power cables. We have our main motherboard cable here. And then we have our legacy cable there, so you can see what we're working with there. And then lastly, we have our power supply cable from the wall to the unit. And then last but not least, we have the power supply itself. Let's look at this up close. All right, on the top of the unit, we have our product information here in a solid metal cover. Here's the MAG branding on the side, the A850GL PCIe 5 power supply with the MSI Dragon. Pretty sweet. Looks good. Here's a look at the back side with our toggle on and off switch and our power plug connector. Here's a look at the other side. You can flip it around so you can see it. Same logo and branding. And that leads us to the back side here with all of our connection options. Study that, take a look at everything that we have right there. And now at the very bottom, we have our cooling fan with the MSI logo and branding. Now let's go ahead, let's plug this in, try it out, and see if everything works. All right, we have everything connected to our Dr. Power 2 right here. Blue is good. We're checking out the motherboard readout first for the motherboard power cable here. Everything is where it should be. 4.9 for 5 volt, 11.8 for 12 volt, 3.3 for 3.3 volt, 12 for 12, 5 for 5, and a PG score of 178 milliseconds. You want that to be anywhere between 100 and 500 milliseconds. Now looking at our PCIe cable, 11.8 for 12 volt, that's well within spec. Blue is good, there's no red beeping or anything like that. Same for our CPU, 11.8 for 12, that's well within spec as well. Then we're looking at our additional accessory power cable if you want to add hard drives, things like that. We're showing 4.9 for 5, 11.8 for 12, 3.3 for 3.3. So everything is where it should be initially right out of the box. All right, we have the power supply installed on our test bench. It's really easy to follow which cables are which because they're the white ones here. So we have our 2 CPU cables right there installed on our motherboard. We have our main motherboard power cable here and our GPU cable. With our GPU cable, pay attention, we have no yellow exposed, so we know it's properly plugged in. And now looking at the unit, if you can see this on the side right here, up here we have our motherboard cable. We have our CPU cable, GPU cable, and our second CPU cable right there. Plenty of room for additional cables depending on your build. If you want to add multiple like 2.5 inch or 3.5 inch drives, any accessories, maybe you're powering a screen, a display, a fan hub, a controller, things along those lines. Now let's go ahead, let's boot it up. All right, at the wall, currently we're at about 100 watts, and we'll cycle through. 0.014 kilowatt hours, 123 volts, 0.616 amps. There's our low, our high, and currently what we're getting right now, around 100 watts at the plug. All right, now it's been over a half an hour of stressing out our power supply with our CPU and GPU at their max capabilities. So currently our CPU now locked in at 391 watts. And our GPU coming in at 319 watts. It's been running like that constantly for over 30 minutes. And everything is working great. The power supply is nice and cool to the touch still. The fan is spun up, but it's noticeably quieter than the fans on our AIO right here. There's no coil whine or anything else coming out of the power supply. Now let's see what we're getting at the wall. All right, at the wall, we're fluctuating a little bit, but we're in the 890 range for our watts currently right now, flowing through. 0.550 kilowatt hours, 119.5 volts, 7.613 amps. There's our low and our high. So we peaked at 923 watts. And in real time right now, 892.7 watts flowing through. Let's take this time to crack out the FLIR camera to look at the power supply, get a feel for how warm or cool it is. There's going to be our hot spot in there. Peaking at a little bit under 100 and there we go. I saw 151 degrees Fahrenheit. So we got one little hot spot there. Again, that's going to be inside the power supply. Everything else nice and cool. Here's a look at the other side. Now we can look at the cables. Still nice and cool, not bad at all at the unit, which should be cool. There's the GPU one. Now we're looking at the CPU on the motherboard right here. 130s for both cables there, give or take a couple of degrees. Here's the motherboard cable. Coming in around 100 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And the moment you've all been waiting for, the GPU right here. Nice and toasty. 150s right at the connector. But then it cools off pretty quickly there. Going down to the 140s and 150s. Now we're in the 110s. And that heat continues to dissipate the further down the cable we get. But looking at the close-up right there, 149, 150, 157. We still peak under 160. Not bad. Just make sure it's plugged in and it's not crimped at the end. So where's that leave us in regards to the MSI MAG A850GL PCIe 5 white power supply? Well, so far so good. No issues to report back. It's currently still being stressed out. We're at the 45-minute mark. Super solid, no coil whine, anything along those lines. So it's working great. I expect it to last for years to come. What would I want to see changed or improved? What are my critiques? I really don't have any for this particular power supply. Maybe a zero fan mode. Not live or die for me, but maybe somebody out there would really appreciate that feature. And honestly, this is super cosmetic and picky of me, but since I wanted a white power supply for this case behind me here, that's where it's going to ultimately end up. I wish that the cables were completely white and didn't have the black end. That's what I'd really want to see change in the future, is just give me fully white cables, since that's the reason why I want the white power supply. But so far, so good. No issues to report back. Everything's working great.